What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some Final Fantasy 16 gameplay for you, and finally the demo has dropped. And thank God it dropped yesterday, because after that terrible, god-awful, horrendous Capcom showcase, I needed something to balance out that negativity, and this definitely was the balance I needed, because this was awesome. Now, I'm going to say this right here, right now, straight up front. If you own a PS5, there is no reason not to download this demo. I mean, there's just none. Just for information, this demo showcases the entire prologue. It's about 2+ hours. If you do beat the prologue, and you want to actually purchase the game, you can start right off your prologue. You don't have to start from the beginning again, so it carries over. You also get another mode unlocked where you can play later on in the game, where you have more abilities and stuff to try it out. So you get a pretty substantial demo size, so there's no reason not to try it. But if you're someone who might not be a big, huge Final Fantasy fan, I'll say this right now, I think a lot of people are going to become Final Fantasy fans from this game, because this game is unlike any other Final Fantasy that's come before. And I'm not just talking about the combat system, because I think we all could see the combat look fun, and this is no exception. But the thing that I've always said, and JRPGs are a unique genre of games, because gameplay, while it is important, kind of always comes second to the story and the characters. Can the story and the characters come along for the ride? Now, I've had no doubt that Clive, the main character, would be really great, because it seemed like everything was tailor-made for him. I was questioning whether the story and the other characters could come along for the ride, and I'll say this right now, by playing this prologue and a little bit of the other part of the demo, man, this is definitely going to be an easy candidate for Game of the Year, if not the Game of the Year. And I've barely even scratched the surface. This is absolutely amazing. I want this game more than anything to be great. And now I think it's not even that it's going to be great. I know it's going to be great. I think the question now is, how great can it be? And that's something we'll have to wait, but not too much longer, because it comes out next week. But I'll just say this right now. Do yourself a favor, go and download this demo. But let's get into why I love this demo, and why I really encourage people to go out there and give Final Fantasy 16 a chance and try. As I said before, the story, I put it in generic terms, is kind of like Final Fantasy in a very serious type political thriller. Like as if it's like Game of Thrones or like Lord of the Rings or Witcher. And I love that environment. It has cool characters, ones I want to see how they evolve into and change over time, but it just really gripped me. This prologue, as I said, it's like 2.5 hours, and it really just got me excited. Not just see Clive, who was cool seeing him from his younger days as he grows up and you have different time changes, but seeing other characters as well. And seeing as they grow and change and what motivates them. It's just a really powerful prologue, and it really sets the tone for this game. You still have your Final Fantasy elements, but it's a lot more serious. This is the first M-rated Final Fantasy game, and that is not to be taken lightly. But it's not just mature for the sake of being mature. It really knows what it wants to do, but that's not to say it doesn't have its nice lighthearted moments, as you probably look on the screen right now, because let's just face it, I think every one of us has fallen in love with Torgal, because he's just absolutely the cutest thing, not just as a pup, but when he grows up as a wolf. But I mean, if you don't believe me, just look at him.
Good luck.
Ain't he like the cutest thing? And by the way, he's not just there for looks. He helps you fight in a party too. But as I said before, story and characters usually come front and center in a Final Fantasy game, and with the icons, the summonings being a huge part of the story, and other people kind of like being their dominant, or in other words, like their avatar of it, it just really brings it front and center, and it gets very personal very early on in the prologue, and what's pretty much shaping Clive on his journey. But as well, there's going to be a lot of mystery, and that's some of the fun part. That's the fun part of a JRPG, is just jumping into a world and just learning more about the world, learning all the plot twists, the things you got to overcome, the characters you'll meet, the journey you'll go on. If you get a great characters and great story on top of an exciting world, it's a whole event that you'll just never forget. It'll leave an impression on you for the rest of your life. But let's get into the combat, because obviously I know some people are like, you got to have gameplay. And I'll say this right now, this is definitely the most extensive combat system ever in a Final Fantasy game. And I know some people were a little bummed off because it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy in terms of the combat, but once again, you just can't do the same thing over and over. And I like games trying things differently. What do I always praise Resident Evil for? Doing things differently over time. It has 3 different perspectives of camera that it excels at over its entire history. So why not try other things as well? And I say this combat section is just absolutely satisfying as hell. It is really satisfying. So you go into here, and by the way, this is the prologue, so you don't have a lot of abilities. In the other part of the demo, which we'll get to eventually, you definitely, they let you experiment more because you have more things unlocked. But you have your basic attacks, your dodge, and if you do a perfect dodge, you can counterattack with a good strike. You have the stagger meter, and if you stagger them, they won't attack you, and you can do more damage. You can pile on the damage. You have your magic abilities from a distance. You also have your whatever icon, as the summonings and stuff. Whatever one you're using, you can have certain abilities with it, not just abilities like, for instance, the Phoenix one lets me get in real close with it and shift towards them, but also have like abilities like, you can combine with the fire and different combos with that. It's really fun when you get a bunch of different icon abilities and stuff. But overall, you have pretty, at first looks like basic battle system, but you also have other curveballs thrown in here. Like you'll have enemies do attacks to you, in which you have like a cinematic thing where you can attack and do some more damage, or dodge and do a counter attack too. And obviously with Final Fantasy, you're always going to have an epic enemy roll call, as you can see on here. You're going to have so many different creatures and stuff you got to fight. But the fun part about the combat, as I said, is not necessarily in this prologue. Is that you're just learning it, and I like the fact you just start off here. But once you start unlocking more and more things, you start to realize what really makes it so satisfying. And when you get in a rhythm, I know a lot of people like to make the Devil May Cry comparison, but that's not a bad comparison at all, because you can just really look really stylish, really cool, really fast-paced, and just go after somebody. And to me, that's just awesome, because if you fall in love with a battle system in a JRPG, you've pretty much just guaranteed that you're going to be there for a long time, because obviously you're going to be in a lot of battles, obviously to farm and get experience and stuff like that. But if you really fall in love with it, which I think easily people are going to be with this battle system, it's definitely going to be something that you're going to be doing for a while and having fun doing. And that's something that's really key, because a lot of times I think people, they might not dislike a battle system, but they might get bored with it because it can be repetitive. And that's one thing you have to accept in JRPGs, is there's going to be some repetition, especially if you want to be really good at it, and you have to go through some stuff. And trust me, it's a lot more generous nowadays than it was back in the old days, because back in the old days, man, you really had, they put the term grind to a whole new meaning. So I don't think you're ever going to get to those days, and some games might do it, but here I feel like you're just going to have a huge blast. And as I said, like, I've only just, as I said, this is the prologue. You've only seen like a few areas. You had the one castle area, then the other Phoenix Bridge, and this marsh area, and there's just, you're going to have a whole huge world map on top of so many other things to do. And that's not to mention like the things I know about the game, like the hunts. I'm so happy for the hunts to go back, but overall, I'm just interested to see how this story really unfolds. As I said, story and characters come first, and I'm happy to see like that they're taking this real serious, but in a more serious, mature, like political thriller here. And that just gives me a lot of hope that this is like going to be something that I'm going to be completely invested in, but something that they've really taken to heart and being very serious with. And as I said, it's not, and I know some people I've read, maybe they're taking away the charm a little bit because it's too serious, but once again, if you're so into the story, it don't think it matters if it's over serious or not. There's going to be serious moments, but there's also going to be some lighthearted moments too. I think just because it's Emery doesn't mean you can't have some nice moments, but yeah, here's some more of the combat. And this is part of the demo where you have the abilities that you can see unlocked and stuff. So you have like multiple icons and stuff. I have 3 I can interchange and swap on a fly, and even in the middle of battle. That's the cool part. So I can go to like the wind, and I can go to the fire one, and then the block, the Titan one, which is just absolutely just unreal, and you can just combine these abilities and just really go into it. And as I said, I'm just doing it for the first time ever, so I'm just kind of more swinging, just seeing what works, what doesn't. But just imagine once you get used to it and know how things flow, it's going to feel good, and that's the most important part. It feels good to change stuff, use different abilities, have different elements flying. It's satisfying, and that's the most important thing I can say. The battle system is so satisfying, and it looks like we're going to have the story and the characters to roll with it. That's a perfect combination right there. That's just a perfect combination, and that's what makes a good JRPG a good JRPG. Because as I said, JRPGs, they do take a while to go through, play, and beat, and it seems like this one is taking all of that and then some. I'm going to go out on a limb here, guys, and I could be wrong, and in the end, it really doesn't matter, but I'm just going to say this right now. I think this is going to be the game of the year. I just think it is. And it's not that we haven't had any good candidates. Trust me, we've been loaded with so many great games. You know, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dead Space Remake, Hogwarts Legacy, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. But I just feel like this thing is just going to be absolutely wild. And not to mention all the people behind it. Not just like the obvious team, but all the other companies that helped out, especially with the battle system. And just this really mature political story, just and kind of like that ancient kingdom, because it's kind of like a homage to like the older Final Fantasy games, because I feel like 1 through 6 are kind of like that old medieval type era, where 7 is kind of like more the change of the tide of how they did things like that, but it's kind of like a homage to a lot of the original ones and stuff. But man, that's going to be my estimate. This game of the year. This has been my most anticipated game, and it's the one I want to be great. I think I can just about say it's going to be great. The question is, how great can it be? And it's been a long time since I played a really great single-player original Final Fantasy game. I don't count Final Fantasy 7 Remake because it is based on something. The last original Final Fantasy game I played that I really enjoyed was Final Fantasy 12. That came out in 2006. I was still in high school, by the way, so as I played 13, and it's not as bad as people make it out to be. It just wasn't a great Final Fantasy. I'm not going to count 14. That's an MMO. I don't play. I'm just counting single-player adventures, but I didn't get into 15. As soon as I saw them pushing that car to run out of gas, I was like, no way. But yeah, I really want Final Fantasy to prove that they can make great Final Fantasy games like they used to, seemingly all the time back in the 90s. But hopefully this video or just watching the background can convince you. If you're on a PS5, there's no excuse. Download the damn demo and at least give it a try. That's all I can ask. But that is going to be it. Hopefully I did convince you guys to give this a try. But if you don't want to do it for me, then do it for Torgal. I mean, do it for Torgal. He's the cutest and most awesome wolf in the world. I mean, let's just be honest. How can you honestly say no to a face like this?
Good luck.